You're watching Around the World, our top global stories. We begin with Russia. Almost immediately after America and Germany announced that they will be sending tanks to Ukraine, Russia decided to hit back with a barrage of missile attacks on Ukraine. Bear in mind, even before the official announcement came, Russia had called the decision a blatant provocation. And so, it launched another wave of missile and drone strikes. At least 11 people have been killed and many others have been injured as Russian attacks struck more than 30 buildings across Ukraine. Russia has deemed the tank support by the US, Germany and other Ukrainian allies as direct Western involvement in the war, a first since the invasion began 11 months ago. Germany will be sending 14 of its Leopard 2 tanks to start with, while the UK will be sending 14 of its Challenger 2 tanks to Ukraine. Both of them are expected to arrive in Ukraine by the end of the month of March, even as tanks from other European nations like Poland are also on their way. America has promised at least 30 of its M1 Abrams tanks, which will not arrive anytime soon. Let's not forget, training Ukrainian soldiers to use Abrams tanks will take even more time after they arrive. Russia, on the other hand, has said that all Western tanks will burn just like the rest. And that's not all. In a show of power, Russian warships armed with hypersonic missiles held joint naval exercises with China and South Africa. The exercises mark both a show of force and a show of solidarity that Russia is not isolated on the world stage. Ukraine, meanwhile, is also pushing for more sanctions on Russia after the latest attacks and is also asking for more weapons from the West, especially fighter jets like the American F-16s, even as France and Italy are close to supplying air defense systems to Ukraine. But Russia has been sending mixed signals. It has played down the strategic value of Western weapons, but at the same time, it has been renewing warnings of the war growing into a bigger conflict every time Ukraine's allies ramp up support. Up next, the major escalation of tensions between Israel and Palestine. The first rocket attack on Israel from the Gaza Strip since Prime Minister Netanyahu returned to power in Israel. Even as Israel retaliated strongly, West Bank and Gaza have been put on high alert, and the US has condemned the sudden surge in violence. Israel carried out airstrikes on Gaza. Explosions were seen lighting up the night sky. This was after the Israeli military confirmed that 2 rockets fired from the Gaza Strip were intercepted by its Iron Dome missile defense system. It was the first Gaza rocket attack after its most right-wing anti-Arab government in Israeli history came to power that, let's not forget, has pledged a tough line against Palestinian militants. The attacks come in the backdrop of a deadly Israeli raid. Its forces killing 10 Palestinians in the occupied West Bank territory. Israeli forces have called it a counter-terrorism operation. The raid was carried out on the crowded refugee camp in the northern city of Jenin. Gunshots rang through the streets and smoke billowed from burning barricades. Since records began in 2005, the United Nations has never logged such a high death count in a single operation in the West Bank. People gathered later to mourn the lives that have been lost. They also protested against the deadly raid by the Israeli forces. The flare-up in violence poses an early test for Netanyahu's far-right government, which is already in a quagmire over its plans to change the country's judicial system. It also casts a shadow on US Secretary of State Antony Blinken's expected trip to the region next week. This even as Hamas, the Islamic militant group that controls Gaza, had earlier threatened revenge for the raid. Moving on, we take you far east to South Korea and Japan, where heavy snow and winds are creating havoc in the region. The cargo ship that sunk a few days ago was right there in the waters between the two countries, Japan and South Korea, in which 8 crew members have now been confirmed dead, while 14 have been rescued. South Korea is currently under layers and layers of snow. Temperatures have dropped below minus 25 degrees Celsius. Things are similar in neighboring northern Japan too, which is also witnessing dangerously strong winds of the winter. The South Korean capital of Seoul is covered in snow. Frozen streets have made traffic a mess. People were forced to take the sidewalk as cars screeched to a halt on the icy roads. Seoul recorded the coldest day of this season at minus 25.5 degrees Celsius. More than 2 inches of snow have fallen already, and more snowy weather is forecasted for the upcoming days. Not just Seoul, neighboring provinces too are under nearly 3 inches of snow. According to the Ministry of Interior and Safety of South Korea, over 2,000 public workers and more than 1,000 vehicles have been deployed to clear the snow from roads and expressways, spraying in excess of 3,000 tons of snow-clearing chemicals and salt. Meanwhile, an unusually cold weather created chaos in Japan too. Heavy snowfall threw traffic in disarray on frozen roads. A truck even slid off the road in the town of Tobetsu. Widespread disruptions have been seen in many regions across Japan. More than 200 flights have been cancelled and operations across over 20 airports have been affected. Cold wave warnings have been issued by Japanese authorities. People have been forced to wait in long lines for taxis even as snowplows worked overtime to remove snow from the highways. Shifting focus to rising gang wars and political chaos in the Caribbean nation of Haiti. Anonymous armed gangs are terrorizing Haiti, and in the latest, people have joined the police in protests. More than 15 police officers have been killed by armed gangs in Haiti just this month alone. Outraged rebel police officers paralyzed Port-au-Prince, Haiti's capital, in response to the wave of grisly killings. A group of armed police officers, along with more than 100 protesters, blocked off roads, even as protesters rode bikes across the city, firing gunshots. The entrance to the Prime Minister's residence was blocked too. Protesters also broke through the gates into the capital's airport and proceeded on to the runway. The United Nations says around 60% of the capital city of Port-au-Prince is under the control of armed gangs. Reports of murder, kidnap, and sexual violence are rampant. The crime rate in the city is at unimaginable levels, forcing common people to rebel against the government with the police, even as the country is in the grip of political chaos after the assassination of their president, Jovenel Moise, back in July 2021. A new president is yet to take charge. Only an acting president is running the country's affairs currently, keeping it with Africa. Remember the Alfred Hitchcock film Birds? Now this is something similar to that. In Kenya, up to 6 million birds are about to be killed. Kenyan farmers are fighting against this common enemy, a species of bird decimating their crops of rice. The red-billed quilia birds have proliferated in Kisumu County in western Kenya, where hundreds of acres of rice crop were decimated by these birds. These birds have eaten up 3/4 of the 5,000 tons of rice production in the region. A single quilia can eat up to 10 grams of grain in a day. Last year, crop losses attributed to the bird amounted to $50 million. A team from the State Department for Crop Protection responded by spraying fenthion, an avicide toxic to humans, but also to non-targeted organisms. To the satisfaction of the farmers, the Ministry of Agriculture authorized this action. However, environmental lobby groups say it as a quick fix that has adverse effects on the environment.
It is unfortunate that this species has already been considered as a pest within our law. However, aerial poisoning of this bird is a bigger danger in the ecosystem, because this would kill other species which are not targeted in this control, and this by itself which increases the risk of environmental contamination, which is a danger to us and a danger to the entire ecosystem.
An ongoing drought has decimated East African nations like Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and Rwanda, all located around the Horn of Africa. The drought has led to a reduction in native grass, the quilia bird's main source of food, and that leaves the birds with no alternative but to feed on grain fields. And with that, we've completely run out of time here on this edition of Around the World. Thank you for watching. Keep it with News 9 Plus.